Good day, and welcome to Out of the Past, brought to you by the Martin County Historical Society. I'm your host, James Marushin, and I have the distinct pleasure of sitting down with Mr. Harlan Gorath today, a longtime Fairmont resident, city councilor, educator, volunteer. Thanks for being here today, Harlan.
Thank you, Jim. It's always a pleasure to be in a position where we can give some support to Martin County Historical Society and talk about things in the past, and I enjoy talking about our school system. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Harlan, can you tell us a little bit about how you and your family came to call Martin County home?
Yes, I began my teaching career in Flanders, South Dakota. Taught there for 3 years. Was fortunate enough to get a teaching assistantship at St. Cloud State. And I taught American history for 3/4 and finished my master's degree. And in '65, there was a job opening in Fairmont. My wife and I came to Fairmont and looked at the town, looked at the school system, thought it was a great place to live.
And so you ended up being here for quite some time as an educator. So over those years, talk about some of the changes that you were a part of or observed.
My principal was an individual by the name of Cap Hagdahl, and he was an individual, I'm sure people would say from the old school. Straight-laced, an individual who had the idea that kids needed to learn, wanted his teachers to be aware of that mode. We oftentimes would have meetings about, whenever we'd have a faculty meeting, many times the school administrators and board would bring in experts about teaching. And I kept waiting to find out if they would bring in experts about how children learn.
Sure.
There's a difference. And I think that mode has become more and more prevalent as the years have gone on. It's, if you walk by a classroom that's quiet, I'm not so sure that there's a lot of learning going on. Students need that interchange, inter-student exchange of ideas and the opportunity to express themselves as best they can in an atmosphere that will allow them to do that. Cap Hagdahl was an individual who pretty much allowed the teachers to pretty much take their ideas and implement them in the classroom. If they didn't work, then you always go to plan B.
Sure. So then throughout the course of your career here, did your educational philosophy change and evolve?
Yeah, I think so. I think that one of the experiences that I was never prepared for, and I'm sure that most other people weren't prepared for, was in 1969 we had a fire.
That's right.
We had a fire, and we went on a program called the Split Shift. I felt that my teaching during that time was successful for a variety of reasons. You know, if you had a child in the elementary, you were on the road from 8 to 4. If you had a child in high school, you were on the road from 7 to noon.
Oh.
If you had a child in the middle school, you were on the road from noon to 6.
Wow.
So I don't think I could have had my teaching go on a continuum without the help of the parents,
Sure.
the understanding of the community, things of that nature. But we had the books, we had the kids there. It's not like what the teachers in the school districts had to go through or are having to go through coming down from COVID. The teachers in our district, or in all districts, but I'm amazed at the teachers and staff to take COVID. They had basically 9 days to prepare what they're going to do.
Sure.
And it's the idea of you get the plane off the ground and then finish it while it's flying. These people did a remarkable job, and the parents, I think, for the most part, were very understanding. And the only thing that I worried about a little bit was there's a trauma involved with kids when they miss their socialization. And I think teachers need interaction with students and parents and administration. So there's some times where you had to read what the other people were doing rather than actually experience it.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of COVID, education, of course, had to rely much more on technology. How did you see technology change in education during your career? What were some of the big moments of change that were introduced?
When I started teaching, technology was chalk. And then we moved on to the slate board. But we were there when the old Apple IIe first started. And that was really, really an interesting accomplishment for the department. Each department had one, and had 4 grown men trying to get there at 7 o'clock in the morning to have it first, so they could have it. But the technology aspect, I think, it's good. The students can pick up a lot of material. They become aware of many things. But where do they get the opportunity to show what they know and to demonstrate that they understand what they know? And that you really don't get that kind of a feedback from a computer, because usually a computer just burps out what you put in.
Sure.
So I think that it's nice, but I think there's some dangers involved.
Sure. Speaking of those other teachers, what was teacher camaraderie like throughout the years, and did it change from the start of your career to the end, how teachers interacted with one another?
Between 1963 and 1968, I believe it was, Fairmont Schools hired approximately 70 new staff members.
Wow.
And that was to bring the vocational program together. And there were also a group that had retired. And so there was a group that came pretty much over an 8 to 9 year period. But of those 70 teachers, I know that there were about at least 30 of them that stayed in our school district 30 years. We became family. We had departments, school departments, or curriculum departments, and we worked together. And our families got together as well. And each of them, I shouldn't say each of them, but quite a few of them also became members of other parts of the Fairmont community, whether it be church, social, golf, whatever it might have been. So that stayed pretty much consistent for my group, for the group of people with whom my wife and I came. My wife worked for Penny's here, and she had 40 years at J.C. Penney. Our daughter, we had one child. She went through high school here, had friends here, and so on. She went on to school.
In your career, I know you taught during a time where I think nationally there was a lot of upheaval, a lot of protests, and I know I've seen articles of it happening in our schools. Talk a little bit about some of like the student opposition, the protests, the sit-in that happened here. Were you involved with those? And what was your general take on them?
During the era of the Vietnam conflict, it was difficult to keep the students really focused on the business of countries being international. They were not necessarily taking sides, but the young men, when they graduated, they had some bitter choices to make from time to time. We had students who saw that protests were taking place. Yes, that they did. We did have a walkout. We did have a protest. One of them came over an article in the Echo magazine.
Okay.
And when I addressed the group, I just said, that you're doing what you think is right, but the decisions you make have consequences. The consequences require that you be in school, in the classroom, not out here. You make the choice. That's the choice you make. I respect that. And I mean, it didn't go all back to class en masse. It didn't. It wasn't that. But that was a philosophy that many individuals had. Other teachers said, they're out of here. Forget it. They're done. As you see today, protesting has gotten to be more of a way of individuals trying to get what they want.
Sure.
So if you would get upset with your sister, would you take a piece of paper and run around the neighborhood asking everybody to sign it so your sisters get kicked out of the house? Well, no, I don't think so.
Right.
But it was a good exercise in democracy.
In addition to being a teacher, you were also been a volunteer in our community. Did you do that as much while you were teaching? And what was kind of along with that? What was the perception of teachers out in the community?
There's a saying that public service is rent paid for space occupied. My father was a strong believer in that. He had an 8th grade education. He was chairman of the school board. He was a county commissioner. He was on the Chamber of Commerce in this great big town of 300 people. And he took it very seriously. And I thought that if there was an opportunity to be an example, maybe to the students, to my own family, you have to walk the walk, talk the talk. If there's something going on and I have a chance to get involved, whether it was at the church or the city or another type of Boy Scouts, whatever it might have been, and there was a need, it could be done.
Sure.
Now, sometimes you would have an opportunity to. Now, I had juniors, mainly juniors in class. To work with that age group, they saw me 5 days a week. What would they want to be doing something with me on Saturday or Sunday? So you do some of those things with your own judgment. But I think for the most part, many people were glad to see their children's teachers involved in something outside the community. Go to the ball games, celebrate student achievement. Those are the types of things. We had one young man who became an American citizen.
Oh.
So the one day in class, I had two students who said, let's do this for Alex. And so Alex in class, I called Bob Schroeder, and I just told the kids that, well, Mr. Schroeder will be here to take some pictures. He wants to see what's going on in the school. And
Sure.
Okay. So we asked Alex could you tell us where you grew up? He said, well, he was in Vietnam. What would you show us? So we pulled down the map, and then the kids had put a great big picture up there, said, congratulations on your citizenship. And those were things that we celebrated.
So Harlan, after you were done educating high schoolers, you moved into educating teachers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I refocused in 98 and began working as adjunct faculty for Mankato State, supervising student teachers. Did that for 16 years. And it was wonderful because these young teachers were coming out of Mankato State with an idea about technology. During that period from probably after the 96 elections, when the whiteboard became really suddenly exciting, all the way up through probably 2005 or so, every school had to have a whiteboard. I need a whiteboard. Had to have. My student teachers who came out had that ability to work with them, and so when they worked with their cooperating teachers, they became the mentors, and that whiteboard was changed from a toy to a tool. I had an opportunity to see new teachers in action, and they all weren't young. They were new, but they weren't all young, and it was very interesting to watch that happen.
Sure. That sounds wonderful, Harlan. Wanted to thank you again for for your contributions to our community and to the educational field, and for sitting down with us today. Thank you for being here.
Well, I really appreciate being here, and the fact that individuals do take an interest in our educational system. And I want to just tell thanks to many of my students who have stayed in the area and worked to make Fairmont a better place, and those individuals who are in business who have asked, encouraged many of our students to come back to Fairmont. They are coming back slowly but surely. So thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. That's all the time we have today for Out of the Past, brought to you by the Martin County Historical Society. We'll see you next time, and please do join us at the museum. Thanks. Have a great day.